very good evening to you and welcome to ITV News. This is Wednesday night's calendar.
Good evening. Here are tonight's main stories.
Finley should have been one of the most protected children in the local authority area. More could and should have been done to help keep Finley safe.
A damning report on the death of 10-month-old Finley Bowden returned to the care of his abusive parents who then murdered him, inflicting 130 injuries.
Also tonight, sewage spills soar. Our region is the second worst in the country for storm overflows. Water companies say wet weather has been the problem. The body representing them says change is needed.
This is no excuse. What we need is investment so that it stops happening. The only way to stop this happening is to build much more capacity in our network. We need more storage tanks and we need to stop as much rainwater entering the system in the first place.
School's out, but parents taking children away in term time are causing concern as fines for missing lessons increase.
And waiting till the midnight hour, the late night football sessions catering for the holy month of Ramadan.
Thank you for joining us. A baby boy killed by his parents just weeks after being returned to their care in Chesterfield should have been one of the most protected children in the area. But 10-month-old Finley Bowden died on Christmas Day in 2020. He'd suffered more than 130 injuries at the hands of his father, Stephen Bowden, and mother, Shannon Marsden. Last year, the pair were jailed for murder.
Today, a child safeguarding review has found numerous opportunities to intervene were missed and that more could and should have been done by social workers to keep Finley safe. Phil Brewster has our top story.
When Finley Bowden died on Christmas Day in 2020, he'd been through unimaginable suffering. A post-mortem examination revealed he had more than 130 injuries to his body, all inflicted by his parents, Stephen Bowden and Shannon Marsden, at the family home in Chesterfield. 6 weeks earlier, Finley had been returned to their care following a family court hearing, despite concerns over Bowden and Marsden's drug use and violence in the home. Social workers were tasked with visiting Finley to check up on his welfare and living conditions, but they were continuously thwarted by his parents, who used COVID as an excuse to prevent anyone entering the house. Today, Derby and Derbyshire's Safeguarding Children Partnership published the finding of its review into the role of the local authority in the weeks leading up to Finley's death. It found more could and should have been done to keep Finley safe.
What went wrong? What was not done that should have been done?
I can't answer specifically in relation to that. What I'm saying is that we accept fully the report, we accept what was said in the report, and we have sought to put right what the report has raised, and we've done that over the last 3.5 years.
The report also highlighted a major lack of experienced social workers and that safeguarding practices in the weeks leading up to Finley's death were inadequate.
There were staff who were unqualified, very inexperienced across the agencies. The supervision wasn't available, and a lot of that limitation was because of the restrictions that the pandemic had brought in, which kept changing. So it was a confusing picture for everybody.
Prior to Finley's return to the family home in October, Marsden and Bowden had sent photos to social care of their newly tidied home looking spotless in an attempt to show they were capable of looking after a child. But it was a sham. When police did eventually get inside the property, they found abject squalor, with rooms littered with rubbish, soiled bedsheets, dirty nappies and dog mess. So how was this missed?
A lot of this is looking back in hindsight, unfortunately. Some of it was known, but a lot of it wasn't until the trial.
Well, a lot of it wasn't known because social workers weren't going and finding out.
Social workers and other agencies worked extremely hard during a very difficult period. They have a tough job, all of them, and they did a tough job as well as they could, but they could have done it better.
Last spring, Stephen Bowden and Shannon Marsden were both found guilty of murder and child cruelty and jailed for life. During their trial, the jury heard that on Christmas Eve 2020, Marsden and Bowden knew that Finley was desperately ill, but instead of seeking urgent medical help, they took him out shopping in Chesterfield. Less than 12 hours later, he was dead.
If there's concerns about a 10-month-old baby boy, whether he's being hurt, whether he's not being cared for, whether he's being brought up in squalor, there will be people screaming social workers should have bust that door down to get into his house and take him away from that dangerous situation which ultimately led to his death. Can you tell them why you didn't do that?
We have no powers to force entry into anybody's property. Only the police have got that power.
They were too easily fobbed off. That's the impression you get with social workers. They were too easily fobbed off by their parents and didn't fight hard enough for Finley.
All the agencies were in the same position, and I keep going back to the fact that the pandemic did. It's not an excuse, but it is the context.
It sounds like it though.
It may do, but it's the context that was happening, and I think that people, we all seem to forget what life was like and what professional life was like 3 years ago.
The Independent Children and Families Court Advisory Service, CAFCAS, who were involved in the decision to return Finley to his parents, said it was profoundly sorry that together we were unable to prevent his death. Derbyshire Children's Services said that since Finley's death, a whole raft of measures have now been put in place to try to prevent other children falling through the cracks.
We have the resources that we have, and we will continue to work hard and honour what happened to Finley, because we owe it to Finley to make sure that we do whatever we can to make these recommendations work into the future.
Phil Brewster, ITV News.
Yes, a terribly upsetting story. Next tonight, raw untreated sewage poured into seas and rivers in Yorkshire for hundreds of thousands of hours last year, according to new figures from the Environment Agency.
It amounts to the biggest annual sewage discharge into waterways since records began. Now, overflows happened following periods of extreme rainfall, and water companies have blamed the spills on 2023 being one of the wettest years ever.
But clean water campaigners in Scarborough say it's been happening for years and is destroying some of our most popular tourist destinations. Michael Billington reports.
The arrival of spring for many brings with it the temptation to get back into the water. That is, until they realise exactly what lurks below the surface.
I often get ear infections, I've had stomach upsets. I now know how bad it is. So if I go in, I'm always aware. If I try to ignore it, I'm still aware of what's actually in that water and what potentially can happen.
Stephen Crawford runs a surf school and shop on Scarborough's South Bay, closed since last May because of poor water quality.
People come here for that view. People come here to look at the sea and feel the openness and just the being outdoors. And feeling if you go in it, you're going to threaten your health is an absolutely horrible thing to feel.
Raw sewage spills into waterways in England hit record levels last year, up 54% on 2022. In Yorkshire, more than 83% were due to sewer infrastructure not being able to cope. In total, it led to more than 500,000 hours of sewage spills into seas and rivers in Yorkshire alone.
Sadly, we're not surprised. The Environment Agency required water companies to monitor all their discharges. We've got 100% coverage now of the sewage network, and that accounts for some of the increase. But actually, it just shows the scale of storm overflow operation in a wet year. And the purpose of putting the monitoring in place was to make an argument for more regulation and more investment in storm overflows. And I think, the results from last year show exactly why that's required.
It's quite disturbing, really, especially when you've got young children playing in these puddles. You think it's safe for them to be playing there, but really it's not, is it? So
yeah, it's not good, especially for children and dogs and everything. That we come here quite a lot throughout the year, so yeah, it's not very nice for us, but obviously we still enjoy it. And it doesn't seem to affect us much, but you don't know about your health, do you?
Pretty disgusting, really. It would put me off paddling.
It would?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's disappointing that we live somewhere like this and we have sanitary ware and stuff like that floating around in the water, and it's poor, isn't it?
Yorkshire Waters blamed the increase on 2023 being one of the wettest years on record, but says it's spending £180 million to try and reduce spillages by next year. Critics, though, say a failure to get a grip of the pollution problem tarnishes the jewels in the crown of Yorkshire's east coast, making this stretch of coastline look less and less inviting all the time.
Certainly makes you think, doesn't it? Well, Michael Billington is in Scarborough, where water companies say this is a lot to do with the weather, Michael.
Well, yes, Laura, I mean, you can't deny that 2023 was a particularly wet year. In fact, the Met Office has said that it was actually the 6th wettest on record. But water companies have also massively increased the number of monitoring devices that actually record these sewage spills. And so they say that these results today were really fairly inevitable. There is another big factor at play here, though, particularly in Yorkshire, and that's the fact that the capacity of the sewer network, whether that's the pipes themselves or storage tanks, simply can't cope with the volumes of waste and rainwater, and so they simply overflow into seas and rivers.
What we need is investment so that it stops happening. The only way to stop this happening is to build much more capacity in our network. We need more storage tanks, and we need to stop as much rainwater entering the system in the first place. We have a plan to get on and sort it. It's with the regulator, and we're very keen to get the green light so that we can build more capacity as fast as possible.
That said, though, the Environment Agency say that water companies are legally responsible for managing these kinds of sewage spills, and they say that they are now putting them under greater scrutiny than ever before.
Michael, live in Scarborough. It certainly looks very beautiful there now. Thank you.
Some more of the day's news now, and the jury in the trial of a man accused of the murder of a Bradford policewoman almost 2 decades ago has begun to consider its verdict. Sharon Beshanivsky was gunned down as she answered a routine call in Bradford. Piran Ditta Khan, who fled to Pakistan soon after the incident, was extradited last year. He denies murder but admits robbery. 6 other men have already been convicted for their part in what happened.
You're watching Calendar, still to come. Whitby's England star Beth Mead opens up about one of her toughest years, coping with the loss of her mum and injuries keeping her out of the game.
And weather-wise, a mixture today along the Pennine Way and quite blustery for Blossom. I'll have your full forecast in the run-up to the Easter weekend a little later on.
Kerry. Now, any parent who's ever tried to book a holiday during the school break will tell you just how expensive it is. But does that mean that it's okay to take children out of school during term time to get cheaper deals? Well, figures suggest that many people think it is okay.
It's certainly a big debate, isn't it? And it's led to the government increasing the fines for school absences from £60 to £80 if paid within 21 days. But one teaching union says it doesn't matter how much you charge, the system simply isn't working. James Webster reports.
Last October, Colette Rico took her youngest son Jacob out of school for a trip to Mauritius. But this wasn't for a cheap family holiday. They were going to scatter his grandfather's ashes at the place his great-grandparents' ashes were also scattered.
Jacob was really close to his granddad. He was devastated when he died. This little bit of the journey was our final goodbye to his granddad. It was really important he had the opportunity to end his grieving process with the family, with all of us, with support.
Although she was granted some compassionate leave, she says it didn't cover all the time needed, so she was fined. Despite that, in the same circumstances, she says she would make the same decision.
If they'd said we're going to fine you £500, I would have still taken Jacob out of school and taken him to Mauritius to say goodbye to his granddad. I've got 2 older children who are 22 and 24. I was never not going to take Jacob. Given his brothers were coming, it would have been even more difficult to not take him.
The number of fines for unauthorised absences is now at record levels, with 399,000 penalty notices issued in the last academic year. 90% of those were for holidays, and those absences have a real impact in the classroom. Richard is the assistant head teacher at Wales High School near Rotherham.
More than anything, I think it has an impact on a child's attainment. Every single day really does count, and it's not just being in 5 lessons a day every single day. It's about those social times as well and being with other children. That's really important.
Fines for unauthorised absences will increase from September, but it is a system that one teaching union says isn't working if the aim is to stop parents taking their children out of class.
The best place for children is in school, but there is a real problem at the moment. Holiday companies hike the prices up during school holiday time, and it means that, the fine system at the moment is not a deterrent, but it's never going to be because the government are just looking in the wrong space.
The Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, says improving attendance is her #1 priority, which is why bigger fines are being introduced. Schools will also have to share daily attendance figures with her department, and more effort will be made to apply the rules consistently across the country. James Webster, ITV News.
Yes, we'll have to see if it makes any difference. Well, the ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30 with stories on our programme. Also making the national headlines is Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, he should have been one of the most protected children in the county. So how was a baby boy murdered by his own parents? A safeguarding review into the death of 10-month-old Finley Bowden finds significant shortcomings by professionals who were supposed to keep him safe. A record amount of sewage spilling into our rivers and seas, more than doubling in a year. And helping out the hedgehogs, how you can aid conservation of the prickly population. Will you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Thanks, Mary. Now then, you know what it's like. So much to do and so little time in which to do it. And if you work full time, getting that perfect work-life balance, well, can prove difficult, can't it, Laura?
It can, Ian. So that's why many people look to cut their hours at work or move their days to make life a little bit more easier. But the government says that everyone should now be able to request flexible working from the very first day that they're in their job.
Sounds interesting. It's hoped it could go a long way to stopping people quitting their jobs and comes into force next month, as Amrit Birdie can explain.
These days, Lindsay Hogg is an award-winning businesswoman with flexible working at the heart of her company. She says it's part of the reason she's been so successful. But it was only after leaving her last job, when a maternity leave deal fell through, that she realised the true value of flexibility.
I did set up the business when I was 8.5 months pregnant, so I was aware I was going to have to, work out. It needed to be flexible for my circumstances at the time. But I think if I was regimented and I was in a place where I couldn't have the flexibility, it would break my heart to not be able to go along to the children's nativity or anything that their friends' mums go to. So I do think, it's been a great thing for us to offer flexibility. You should be able to do both, have a great home life and have a great career as well.
Flexible working includes working part-time, working compressed hours and working from home. And soon the law around flexible working is going to change. Currently, you have to have worked for your employer for 26 weeks or more to have the right to ask if you can work flexibly. From the 6th of April, that will change, so you have the right to ask from the first day of employment. But a recent survey found that 7 out of 10 employees are not aware of this change in their right to flexible working. HR expert Sarah Bradley from Leeds says the new rules could present some challenges for employers who struggle to offer flexibility.
It's certainly more of a challenge when you've got a smaller company, the SME size organisation, but it's something that we need to be really trying to embrace. It's become more of a desire of people to work flexibly. So it is something that needs to be considered.
But charity Working Families, who worked with the government on the new bill, say employers will only gain from the changes.
It's about having those human-to-human conversations with people who work with you. We know from many of our employer members that there are significant productivity gains. There's gains in engagement with employees, and there's also retention, which improves dramatically.
With the effects of lockdown still being felt in empty offices, when the changes do come into force next week, many workers and their employers will be preparing for the way we work to look different once more. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
I've got a great idea, girls.
What's that then?
How about we work from home? Should we ask the boss?
We can't. We need a studio.
Well, we could just be filmed from there like that and have Jim Jams on underneath. What do you think?
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? With a cup of tea and a crumpet.
He does anyway.
Oh, thanks.
Weather-wise, oh, the weekend's almost upon us, isn't it? I'm sticking to my story for the weekend. It's not looking too bad. There will be some drier and brighter slots, and today pretty much set the scene for what we're expecting over the next couple of days. This morning, plenty of blue sky, a really good start. A big thank you to Stuart Slynn for this shot in Derbyshire. By lunchtime, we had quite a bit of cloud around and the winds were picking up. You can see there by the fountain in Castle Howard, it was blowing all over the place. But this afternoon into this evening, some beautiful low sun over Addlechurch. A big thank you to Paul Goodyear for that. So pretty much was the story, and here you can see it, lots of clear skies first thing, this weather front coming through middle part of the day, and then those showers which have started to kick in now, and there are a few heavy downpours out there nudging north and eastwards over the next few hours. So that's the weather, and that's pretty much what's happening over the next couple of days. Weather front, drier, clearer spell, weather front, drier, clearer spell. But if you can get out of the winds and in the sunshine, especially towards the weekend, it won't feel too bad, and it means that nature is continuing to show us signs of spring. Butterflies and bees, they're out there at the moment, they're starting to emerge. This is a peacock, a big thank you to Ian Wilson for that one on a hyacinth there. Tortoiseshell in heather, a big thank you to Roy. Absolutely love this one, a comma on the goat willow. And Bill also saw this honeybee gathering a lot of pollen, and yes, the bumbles are out, they're big, it's the queens, they're just coming out of hibernation. A big thank you to Janet for that, keep them coming.
Brilliant. I saw some in York today, actually.
Biggies.
Lovely.
England footballer Beth Mead, who's from the village of Hinderwell near Whitby, has opened up to ITV News about the death of her mum last year. It's been a tough 18 months for Beth, who was out of action for almost a year after serious injury, just weeks after playing a starring role in the Lionesses winning the European Championships. Her mum June then passed away in January last year from ovarian cancer. But Beth recently returned to the England squad, scoring twice in their win over Austria last month.
The Euros was a dream come true for every player and every family, but obviously it was the last time my mum got a chance to watch me play football live for England. And although it was a very, very nice game to watch, my mum was someone that I spoke to every day and would, if I had a bad day or a good day, she'd be the first person I would tell. So I guess I was very proud, and I know she's very proud of me for getting back into that. But obviously it's not nice that I can't do that in person.
I'm sure she's still very proud.
Yeah, she will be, certainly. Now then, let's stay with football, because finding time for sport can be difficult in the month of Ramadan, with days spent fasting and in the evenings worshipping.
This is where the Rotherham Community Trust comes in. They've set up a Ramadan Midnight League where from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. anyone can come to join the fun before another day's fasting. Arif Ahmed has been to a session for us.
Getting their football fix in the dead of night. With days spent fasting and evenings in prayer, finding time for football can be difficult for Muslims during Ramadan. But every week between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m, players in South Yorkshire play in the Ramadan Midnight League, a six-a-side tournament allowing them to play the sport they love during their holiest month.
After our iftar meals that we open our fast with, it's just something to do. It gets the community involved, everyone together, and I just think it's a beautiful thing. You know, come in playing what we love to do, football, and I just think it's fantastic. And you know, you see your friends, you see everyone else.
The league isn't just for Muslims either. It brings different religions, cultures and backgrounds together under one roof.
We can learn from everybody. Different teams bring different things to this tournament, and that's what it's all about. Everyone getting on, everyone learning, and everyone having a smile on their face.
It shows what Rotherham as a community are about. It's not just, Ramadan for us. It's about, spreading, good vibes, peace, and also sharing people what our religion's about. But at the same time, having a sense of community where you've got different people from different walks of life, different environments that all come together. And obviously, it's football, and football brings people together at the end of the day.
We believe Rotherham as a football club is not a Man United, it's not a Chelsea, it's not the top of the Premier League, but what it can offer is opportunities for young people and Rotherham communities, no matter what background you come from, to get involved in something positive, healthy and active.
The league also draws in a small crowd of spectators, a safe space off the streets for friends to gather.
At least they can come and watch and support each other.
and that's great for the community.
It is Ramadan. It's a nice time out, but it's still massively competitive, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think you can try and make something really nice and friendly and safe, but football's football. But that's part of it as well. It's that competitive nature in a fun and friendly, safe environment.
Even in a month of peace and prosperity, these players still find the time for some competition. Arif Ahmed, ITV News, Rotherham.
Looks like a lot of fun,
They're
that.
certainly enjoying themselves, aren't they? Now then, are we going to enjoy ourselves in the weather? Let's get the forecast from Kerry.
Good visibility on the horizon. Tiri sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello again, yes. For most of us, at least at some point during today, we had that slice of blue sky and sunshine, but pretty short-lived, quite a lot of cloud and showers or longer spells of rain either side and never too far away. That's the case as we head into tomorrow. We continue with that colder feel, particularly in exposure to those stronger winds with low pressure in charge. Now the lows do nudge north and westwards, and we're sort of in between low pressure systems as we head into the weekend itself for Saturday and Sunday, and the isobars open up. So lighter winds and maybe some dry conditions later Saturday into the first part of Sunday. But in the meantime, for this evening and overnight tonight, the heavy showers nudge northwards, a brief drier, clearer, colder spell, but pretty short-lived once more, cloud thickening from the south into the early hours, some mist and murk over the hills, the winds freshening once more from an easterly direction initially, and those temperatures, if anything, lifting a little bit by dawn. We are expecting a slice of sunshine, at least for a time again, as we head into tomorrow. There is sun times, 5:48 and 6:36, but we have to get this system out of the way first. Some heavy showery pulses of rain nudging northwards, then a little bit of sunshine, a drier spell for sure, and then another system bringing further showers, which could be heavy, maybe even contain some hail and thunder. The winds strengthening, so strong and gusty winds, maybe in excess of 30 miles an hour, and feeling chilly, average temperatures at best. Again, there might be some brighter breaks as we head into Friday morning, but again for the afternoon, sunshine and quite a widespread rush of showers, highs of 13 in the sunny spells and quite breezy. Fewer showers on Saturday, temperatures improving, hopefully dry at least for a time on Sunday, unsettled for Monday.
Tiri sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
It's not really the weather I'd hoped for the Easter weekend.
Some drier and brighter spells in between. We've got to hang on to them.
Okay.
Have you seen the Easter Bunny yet?
No.
It was too early.
Oh, you have to wait till Friday, do you?
I've seen a blackbird.
What
Thanks
can
for
I say apart from
watching.
good night?
Bye-bye.
Bye.